Over the past few years, I've been co-authoring and researching with two colleagues what it is that really drives entrepreneurs. Is it possible to answer the question if there are certain traits or characteristics that drive entrepreneurial success or entrepreneurial decision-making? After interviewing some 500 plus entrepreneurs through surveys and live interviews and through spending time side by side with them, combined with looking at our own past personal experiences of building our own businesses and getting our knees both skinned and also having the good fortune of having a modicum of success in some of them, we concluded that there are four key characteristics and traits that drive entrepreneurial and business building success. These are heart, smarts, guts, and luck. And those four traits of heart, smarts, guts, and luck represent the title of our forthcoming book in August, being published by Harvard Business School Publishing. But recently I put forth a blog that exerted one key and striking finding of our research that has seemed to strike a nerve amongst the entrepreneurial community. And it is the concept and observation that great businesses, really, really great businesses, simply don't start with an overly formalistic plan or overly formalistic analysis. They start instead with that trait that we call heart. And we define heart to be that purpose, that passion, that what the Greeks called agape, the maternal sacrifice worth giving for, because you're creating something that is akin to giving birth to a business child. And it is the nuance that surrounds all of that to make for something that is special. And in our research, what we found was when we looked at both successful entrepreneurs and less successful ones, that of those that had a successful exit, that is, that they found a way to either have an IPO, an initial public offering, or sold their company for a good value, an astonishing statistic came out, which is that 70% of those entrepreneurs who had a successful exit did not start with a business plan. And when you think about it, it makes common sense, but you have to then question why this is not commonly done. That is why the vast majority of teachings and the vast number of other business books out there put forth the notion that the right starting point and inception is to sit down and write a plan. And I want to clarify one thing, because I looked at a number of the readers' comments on the blog posting. It's again not that a plan cannot be helpful, but what type of plan is most helpful at the beginning. Certainly what we feel is more important than getting too hung up on the content of the plan is to focus on data that will help you put the right direction and set the right direction going forward. And how do you get that data? How do you get that input? Well, you start by doing. You start by a principle that we call you think big, which is your purpose. But as my partner Mats Lederhausen says, think big, start small before you scale fast or fail fast. And starting small is finding that first milestone, that first element to try to prove that you are making progress, and measuring maniacally to know whether you are making advancements against that score or not. You know you have won when you have met that first milestone. And by doing and getting some data, you can learn much more than writing. And that is what great business people do. They start by simply doing. You can take very mundane examples of people that are trying to start a restaurant, a fairly common business enterprise, certainly here in America. And I've been advising various student groups and some other entrepreneurs who are interested in getting in this challenging industry. And they've asked, what do I need to put down in the plan? How do I think about my financial pro forma? And I've said, far more important than anything in the plan is first, as we all know, start with people. The people trump the idea. But in terms of doing, go out and test some food with people. Go out and see if people like your food. And do they have a willingness to pay for it? You know, maybe before you build all the bricks and mortars of a restaurant, you can find a simple stand to sell your food. Maybe you start with a food truck. That's a very hot trend. Maybe you go to a campus and sell off of an adult version of a lemonade stand for food. But if you're going to do a restaurant, start with the fact to figure out whether or not you have a good product. And that input will be probably far more valuable than anything you can put down on a business plan. Another element that we have written about both in our book and I touch on the blog and on hbr.org is the notion that when you are trying to get a sense of the economics and financial pro forma of your business plan, get more focus on the general business model than the exact details of an Excel spreadsheet that will 99% be sure to prove out not to come true. That is, that you can spend a lot of time becoming precisely incorrect as opposed to approximately correct. And I think when people get too hung up, there's a dominant, and business schools sometimes have a tendency to perpetuate this type of behavior. There's a tendency to use too much of that left brain, to overanalyze something that ultimately becomes theoretical and academic because you simply don't have enough data to know whether that financial projection will come true. I think far more important is simply to know what is the general business model in terms of how you'll make money. Are you going to make money by selling things and making the difference between what it costs you to buy it and how much you're selling it for, i.e. transactional revenue? Or is your business model one that is going to be based on advertising? Or is your business model one that is more subscription-oriented, that you have a piece of content or a set of digital tools that you're going to put out there and people have a willingness to pay to subscribe to that intellectual property, that content or set of tools that you have? It's just far more important to know the general direction of how you'll make money than to try to get theoretically precise of the details of exact pennies and dollars of what it is you think you'll make. And the notion that you can predict 5, 6, 7 years out, we all know when we, as venture capitalists, seeing all these business plans, we all see the hockey stick projection that we all hope to accelerate to a very high point of growth in 3, 4, 5 years out. But try to think about what is realistic, what is practical in that first 3, 4 months out. Be a pragmatic idealist in the way you approach this. Again, think big, start small before you try to scale fast. And equally important, just building on that point, I think is the concept that if those first milestones are not working, have the courage and intellectual honesty to fail fast. Probably one of the biggest mistakes we see in business is that people hope for far too long despite being faced with the reality of data, the reality of seeing that their product is simply not competitive, it's not good enough, but yet they continue to want to push that noodle up a hill. And whilst there is a lot of merit to have the guts, persistence, and the resilience, you have to equally have intellectual honesty to know when things are not going right, and to embrace that failure and to learn from it. Finally, another 2 touch points that we speak of on the blog that are important to remember during the start of a business is that what you really want to do is focus. Focus on a well-defined market niche before you dream too big of the big market. A fallacy of most business plans is that people come out and they say, well, if I only have 0.005% of this massive market, if only I can sell 1 bar of soap to less than 1% of the people in China each month, I have a $100 million business in my first year. Well, good, go out and try it. You know, bon chance. It just doesn't work that simply. And to base a business on the notion that all you need to do is have a very small sliver, a very big market, is again more of a theoretical observation that is not necessarily incorrect, but it is incorrect from the standpoint that it's not the right focus. Execute first to see if you can get one customer before you worry about whether or not you can have 0.5%, 2% of an entirely large market. And the best way to do that is to focus on a market niche where you have the inner belief that you have the possibility, the prospect of potentially being the best at that small market niche before you get too caught up in that big, massive market. So really understanding where to focus to start. And it takes me to my last wrap-up point, which is that more so than anything, at the instigation of a business, the thinking big has to start from that place called heart again. It is the purpose. And that purpose has to be bigger than your product. It is that purpose which some people call vision, they call mission. But it is the purpose that is really the soul of the business. It is what drives you. It is what you feel more so than what you write and do. And this is the most fundamental trait. I think about 50% of the founders we found through our research had that quality of heart, had that quality of purpose and passion when they started. And when I sometimes get asked advice on, well, how do I know whether or not I'm really doing the right business? Well, the answer is quite simple. You feel it. And you know when you're in the presence of someone who feels it, because there's an infectious quality to their storytelling, not an analytical walkthrough of their business plan. Start with heart, think big, start small, and grow your business fast. Great businesses start from the heart, not with the plan.